Well, hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to the second broadcast of the Local Soul podcast, and thank you for joining us. Our dream in starting this podcast was to capture the stories that really form the soul of this beautiful and deep town of Eatonton in the center of Lake Country. And when we came into Eatonton, my wife and I had this sense that not only is this a deep place, but this could be a place, already is, but it could be a place of influence for the entire Lake Country, which for those of you who are listening in Colorado, you live in a beautiful place. And California, we have friends over there in Portland and all over the nation. We believe that this is a uniquely beautiful, seasonally beautiful, a uniquely wonderful place that's full of art and intelligence and opportunity. And as we started to have conversations with different people around town, which is just a hobby of ours, we started to think that everyone needs to hear these stories because everyone lives in some sort of a community, and our heart and our dream and desire is that perhaps a story like our guest today could influence your little town or your community in a larger town. And so we're happy, so excited. I feel such a privilege to sit down with Robbie King, the president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. And yeah, I feel out of my depth with a person who has such a long legacy of leadership. And we want to hear some about that. We want to hear some details of leadership, but we really want to capture your story, Robbie, and broadcast that out for Eatonton so people can know you better, even outside of your influence group, that people can tap into your story. But then double click on some of the things that really make you, and maybe some things that the next generation listeners and watchers could grab a hold of some of the things along your journey that have made you great, and maybe some advice that'll come out in this for.
Don't do this.
Yeah, don't do this.
Don't do it this way.
So just be ready. We're going to talk about some failures later on in our podcast, and so we're going to have to dig deep for some of those. But
Not too deep, probably.
say hello to the Local Soul audience.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be here. Typically, I'm on the other side of the mic, so this is a little bit different for me to be on the answering questions instead of asking questions as I typically do. But I'm excited. I love to share, and anything that I can do to help someone else. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's what I'm all about is helping people and helping businesses and making our community better.
Oh, that's great. So let's start this way. Before, as I clear my throat. There's probably a lot of onlookers, especially you coming into a seat of influence in the city of Eatonton. And people have drawn opinions about you, but really the only opinions that matter are the people who know you. And so, let me ask you this: how do the people who know you best describe you?
That's a great question, and something I ask myself often. I also have coached businesses and individuals for many years, and there's kind of two parts to that question. One is, what do you want to be known for? And then the other part of the question is, what are you known for? And sometimes those are close, and sometimes they're not.
That's a great delineation.
And I find especially if you get somebody thinking about that in the sense of their business or organization, now you have a direction to go. But to get back to me, what I think I'm known as, and what I'm pretty sure most people know me as, is a community connector. I love to put the pieces together to make 1 + 1 = 3. Mm-hmm. So if I can connect you with someone that can help you, then in the end we all win.
Oh,
So I hope to be and continue to be a community connector.
great. I think as a leader, we were talking just a few minutes ago about influence and power in organizations and over a whole community. And I think one of the things I said was that the best person in a place of leadership is the one who'll distribute. And I think that's key to connecting, being able to hold loosely and pass along.
Something that a mentor of mine, who is John Maxwell, who many people would know, uh, something he says often, and it resonates with me, is you want to be a river, not a reservoir. So to fill that gap, yeah, definitely you want to you want to give back. You don't want to try to hold it all in.
Yeah, well, you can't drop a name like John Maxwell without me asking. In what context has he been a mentor? Is that in a cohort or something like that, or have you had face-to-face time with him?
I'm fortunate to have had some face-to-face time
Oh,
with him.
what a privilege.
I've been in a room with John and probably about 10 people. So that was special. I've been in a room with John with 3,000 plus
Yeah,
people.
sure. Everybody has
Yeah.
at some time or another. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, whether it's his books, and I am certified to teach a number of his books and curriculum. So
Wow.
that was something that that was special to me. But yeah, I feel like if there's one person I would aspire to be more like, it would definitely be John.
That's great. Well, I want to go dark for a second. In your leadership wheelhouse, what, and this could be an onlooker if they were honest, someone in your in an organization or in your under your influence, or it could just be. I think the best leaders are self-aware of their idiosyncrasies or their lacks. What's an area of your leadership that you kick yourself for?
Well, it's kind of tied into a personality trait, I suppose. But one thing that I am is very much a perfectionist, and sometimes that can be a detriment because I don't really want to pull the trigger and move forward on something until I've looked at all the contingencies.
Yeah.
And that's just, that's I know that's not realistic, but sometimes that has held me back from getting in, or doing something earlier than I like to. I'll refer to myself as a recovering perfectionist because it's something I'm aware of and that I have to fight against.
That's really for a listener. You might be thinking, "Oh, he just turned a weakness into a strength." But in the leadership world, we know that if you launch when you're ready, you've launched too late.
Exactly.
And that's when I heard that, I thought, I'm not so much of a perfectionist as I am self-conscious about my own weaknesses, and that's kept me from jumping early enough to really catch the wave. So that I think that's very intuitive for you to say that.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with the DISC, the personality
Absolutely.
DISC. So in that world, I'm a high C.
Okay.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, and I'll call it my enemy in air quotes, but my enemy is a high D because the D is like, let's go, let's go, let's go. I'm like, wait a minute, we haven't considered all the contingencies yet. So, before I understood personality communication types, and particularly with DISC, used to wonder why do I and this person not get along? Well, it's exactly that.
Yeah.
It's, because some people are, ready, shoot, aim. And I'm like, wait, we got to make sure we're aiming at the right thing.
Earlier in my career, I would have been one of those people that you were wondering, why didn't we get along?
Why can't we get along?
What's the hang up between me and this guy? I've balanced out through the years. I think this part of just growth and leadership is finding your weaknesses and not necessarily attacking them, but finding that balance in them.
Yeah. And then a big part of it too is understanding people, so this person is a D. This person is different than me. That doesn't make us wrong. That just makes us different. And we have to figure out how to work around that.
Yeah, it sometimes makes you wrong. Okay, Robbie. That's my D coming out.
There's your D.
So did you grow up, let's go back to your formative years. Did you grow up with a strong value system that you had in your home?
I did. I grew up in a pretty typical family. Mom and dad. I was the oldest
Okay.
of two. Mom and dad very caring. We always do the right thing. We went to church every Sunday. I grew up in a Baptist church
Okay.
actually, and
That's okay. There's
nothing
no
wrong with
reason.
that.
There's no reason to apologize for that.
Um, so yeah, very very typical childhood. My parents were very supportive of anything that I wanted to do. Kind of taught me you can do anything, you can be anything you want to. So I was fortunate in that way.
That's good. Was that something? Was faith something that was at the forefront of your home? Obviously, you went to church, but was that something that came home from church and was talked about as a value system, or was it just assumed?
I would say it was more assumed.
Yeah, that's
I
common.
mean, while we certainly prayed before meals and that
Hmm.
sort of thing, it wasn't the major focus in our home.
Yeah. Did you have obviously with a value system that was, albeit assumed, but strong in your home? Do the right thing, you said. Um, was there a season in your life that you bucked against that? Were you ever a rebel in any way?
Yeah, I was. I think later on in I don't know, probably high school years,
Hmm.
I was uh, trying to break out of the norm
Yeah.
as most
Yeah.
teenagers do. So yeah, I definitely there was some rebellious
Yeah.
times when sometimes a decision would be made not even because I wanted to do it, because I didn't want to agree.
Yeah, that's great. I think that um, there are early seeds of leadership in rebellion that
Sure.
that turn into that strength of leading an organization or a person, that without a buck against the system, you're probably not going to rise into the seat of leadership. But there has to be healthy reins put on that. We have to find those along the way. Was there coming from an assumed, keep on that theme? Was there a season in your life, or did something happen with you that was a spiritual breakthrough for you, that you had your own conversion experience?
So somewhere in that youth period is when I discovered the true meaning of being a Christian, and
Mhm.
became a Christian, and lived that way, and really have lived that way most of my life.
Mhm.
Though I will have to admit that there was a period of time in a lot of my younger adult time that I really walked away from the church, from I- I- anything formal.
Yeah,
Though I feel like I've had that relationship with God my whole life,
yeah,
but there was a time that I really I didn't embrace it.
yeah. Was there something that happened that brought you back? Was it family or an awakening inside?
You know,
A need for church, even?
I guess there was a need for it. Brandon, I don't really have. There was not a defining
Mm,
event or
yeah,
moment where I said, I've got to
right.
get back to
I keep
church.
pressing, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm
it
really
was.
not. I'm not searching for something, but just if there is
Yeah.
something there.
No, I think it was always there. I think it just became a lot more um, important to me to be part of a church community as well as a broader community too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that the older they get, we those those undercurrents of meaning in our life that we either shirk, rebel against, or just put aside because youthful, pleasures, ignorance, whatever. Those have a way of reemerging at the top of our
Certain times,
psychology.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So let's jump in and talk about the roles that you've played in leadership. So remind me what your longest career prior to this, what your longest career had been.
So my actual career was in telecom,
Okay.
and it spanned the better part of 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a tenure.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
that was a long time, and you know, varied roles, varied organizations, but the bulk of it and the latter part of it was with Comcast Business,
Yeah.
and you know, I was a regional director. I was also an interim regional vice president, and obviously, you know, at times having actually hundreds of people in my organization, you became a leader whether you wanted to or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And
It was sink or swim.
yeah, yeah.
For
And
sure.
so, you know, that's where I learned a lot. I had a number of great mentors during that time, and you know, it just I enjoyed it. I mean, it was you know, high stress.
Yeah.
You know, anytime you're in a major corporation, there's plenty of reasons for stress, but you know, as you're driving toward profitability for this quarter, and you know,
Sure.
it's all about the numbers and stockholders. But I enjoyed that, and really really excelled in it. And when it was time to go, I kind of knew it was time to retire. And it's probably been about 12 years ago now that I stepped away from that.
Wow. I want to talk about stress here in just a second, but I think we'd be remiss without pointing to Maxwell and others who they have any great leadership program or mentor we'll talk about. It's just as important to know when to leave as what to do when you're in an organization. That leaving too late can ruin a legacy. So it's really great to hear you say that. So how do you manage stress when you say in a high stress environment, which I know other people in leadership in the telecoms, whether it's AT&T or others, and they all say the same thing, that next quarter profits and everything. What is it that you do to manage stress?
You know, I was always good at, I guess I still am, I just don't have to do it as much, but really compartmentalizing life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this put the work in this compartment, put the personal life in this compartment, and pull them out at the right times. And
Yeah.
you know, I think that was kind of a God-given talent. I don't know that I learned that, but it was just something that I was able to do. So when it was time to go to sleep, I just shut it all down.
Really?
And drop. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. In fact, sometimes I think back, I think I slept better then than I do now, because, you know, I was able to just move those chess pieces around and make it work.
That's amazing, and I'm jealous right now because although I managed stress well, that was something that I learned, and mentors pressed into me that if you don't, one, you're not going to be successful, and two, you're going to just get sick. So it's great to hear that there can be a natural inclination that comes about. So in your leadership formation, what are some key things? And I want this to be educational, informational, but educational. What are some key resources or things that came about through the years that you either sought after or came your way that helped you form formatively as a successful leader?
I'm going to start answering that question with a quote.
Awesome.
I don't know if it's John Maxwell or who.
We're just going to stay. Shout out to John.
Somebody has said this, and it stuck with me for a very long time. But people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that
You're speaking my language as a pastor. Yes, sir.
I think that really says a lot. And as a leader, you've got to be willing to do anything that you're asking someone else to do. Number one, that's hugely important. And I mean, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, picking up some trash off the parking lot or, you know, making sure the bathroom's clean, whatever it is. If you're asking someone else to do, you need to be willing to do that yourself.
Oh, I think that's
first and foremost.
That's absolutely great. And I have later on, we'll talk about some stories about choosing the right leaders in an organization, especially high capacity leaders. That humility piece is huge, huge.
Well, what is referred to typically as servant leadership, I think that's, true leaders, that's who they are.
Yeah.
And it's more about serving the people that you're leading than telling them what to do.
That's exactly right.
And then the other part of it, and kind of goes back to the quote, is, you got to actually care for the people that you lead. I mean, if you don't, then you're not going to be effective as a leader.
An image came to my mind while you're saying that we in the church world, I think probably in every leadership world, we talk about leading from the front, leading from behind, or leading in the middle. And it occurred to me while you were saying that all three are important. You have to assume all of those roles, that people need to see you out front. They need to feel your urge from behind. But that middle, without that middle component where you're in and among, serving, loving well, seeing your people, neither of the other two are going to be effective.
Yeah. I mean, you got to truly love your people. You may not like them all the time. You may not like them some of the time, but deep down, it kind of comes down to the same Christian principles that we live by. Is that you love everybody. Yeah. Whether you like them or not, that's another day.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you've had some mentors along the way. I want you first to name one or two of those, because we want their names to be cataloged and to be celebrated. And then I'd like for you to just talk about what it is that you have looked for in, or that you look for in a mentor. What makes a good mentor?
Well, I think the same things that make a good mentor would make a good leader. I don't think you can separate those two. I'm trying to reach out. I mean, again, John Maxwell obviously is the top of the list for me. Still is, and always will be long after he's gone, I'm sure. Earlier in my career, there was a rear admiral by the name of Deese. They call him Deese. His initials were DC, and somehow that became Deese Thompson. And he was just one of those people that, he wasn't extremely, never animated, always calm. Typical admiral that you would expect to be leading,
contained.
A huge team of people, very contained, very wise. And he wouldn't tell you what to do, but he would lead you to make the right decisions. And he always wanted the best for the people that he
servant. He knew that he was for you.
And so he definitely comes to mind. And it may sound a bit cliche or whatever, but over the years, particularly the last couple of decades, I've come to realize that Jesus is really the ultimate mentor. If you want to emulate someone that was a leader without any authority, I guess, on earth at least, that was him.
He had authority, but he didn't wield it heavy-handedly. And I think a cross section between you and Deese, or between Jesus and Deese, is that leading people to the right thing to do, not always telling them. There's this frustrating tension with Jesus and the disciples where they're asking questions and he's not giving them the full answer. And I think as a young mentee, someone being influenced, you're like, can you just tell me what to do? Right. We recognize the older we get that we'll fish way better if in that mentoring incubator where somebody's saying, all right, figure this part out and we'll correct the process a little bit later.
It's sort of like if you look at, the book Think and Grow Rich, which most people have heard of, very few have probably actually read, but everybody's looking for, well, what's the answer? But as you read the book, you realize you've got to draw the answer out of yourself.
Yeah, sure.
At the end,
it's not necessarily self-reliance, because you've mentioned a couple of times we're in a community, but there is a sense of that's the struggle to find the right in that process that I think the next generation, to repeat the phrase or the word struggles with the idea of struggle, but there's so much value in that struggle. Yeah. How would you say, this is the last question on your executive experience. How would you say somebody coming into a aspirational leadership, how is it different today than it was when you were coming into Comcast, or anyone else coming into that, once again, aspirational, that they really want to be successful and to lead in an organization? What's different today than when you were coming in?
That's a great question, because
you can keep saying that every time. After every question, say that.
Every question,
yes, sir.
That gives me a moment to contemplate as well. No, that really is a great question, because in some ways it is different. Mm-hmm. There's so much information available now. I mean, there's an endless amount of information that we could pull up a computer right now and find. Yeah. Whereas, 20, 30 years ago, you had to make a little more effort. You had to buy a book or order a book, or find things like that. But I think the main thing is that it's not as different, is because you still need those mentors. You still need someone that can guide you. You always want someone who's been down the road. Yeah. And here's a key part of it too. You don't want necessarily someone who's been all the way down the road, because as you get further down the road, you start forgetting what it was like in the beginning of the journey.
Idealizing that journey as well.
Yeah, you forget the rough spots. And you just remember, that was a great journey. Yeah, I love that. Because even now, I think back on some of the things and I go, I don't even know how I got through that. That was hard. So, but if you're working with somebody who's just a little bit ahead of you on the path, then they can tell you where there's a pothole right there. Don't step in there. There's a branch you got to duck down. So they can give you that. Where somebody too far down the road, maybe they forgot that branch was there.
Yeah.